Ready? All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Sister City Committee, Thursday, July 16th, 2026. I guess we'll start with attendance. We have Robert Kennard, Mary Carey Foley, Robert Sullivan, Ben Van Camp, and Stephanie Secord. And I believe Christine Freeze is joining us from Zoom. No, do not think so, not yet. And Chair Rich Playlock present. All right, onto the agenda, we have number one item, review and approve past minutes. You all have a copy of the minutes in front of you. I want to thank Stephanie for drafting these. They look, but I entertain a motion to approve and place on file. So moved. Or a second?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you, Stephanie, for those.
Is the mayor's last name really Sacchetti? Think anybody ever called him spaghetti?
No.
If I exited.
When he was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Mary Carey won the film. We're on beach film. They're seeing this in Italy.
I don't think we, I don't know.
Sorry.
No.
Not respectful.
All right, we're going to item number 2, old business. First up, we have the update from Solnock Hungary. Several of us were able to join in on Zoom with their representative, Adrienne. I thought it was a productive meeting, just touching base and actually trying to figure out really where our friendship city, technically, we discovered, but just where, why it started, where it started, who started it. Just so we know more information. And then she mentioned their mayor is coming in September. And we mentioned if they're in Boston, then they could possibly come up here and visit, and maybe we could set up a mayor to mayor meeting. But yeah, I'll anything else to?
Yeah, she said she'd let us know what the schedule was.
So we are in a relationship with them now as friendship cities.
Yep.
Correct, since 93.
Since 93.
No one seems to know why is the
Yeah.
big question. Like no one seems to know what the connection was that
Okay.
formed the relationship.
Being filmed. They're watching this in home.
I think that's what she said. Like we were all curious. So it's a curiosity thing of why.
Yeah.
Like, what was the origins? Was it some kind of
I always hear
economic
that.
trade or?
I always hear that. I don't know why.
I don't know.
And then it's laid dormant now for years.
Yeah,
Right.
They didn't even have it on their list of. I think they discovered
They
it.
have a list of sister cities on their website.
Yeah.
We're not included. So maybe they don't include friendship cities. I don't know, but we're not.
Okay.
How they found us.
Yeah.
They found a piece of correspondence that.
I do know they have some, bunch of political change over there, and I think they're interested in more reestablishing their connections with the US with this new, political party and stuff. But I tried to reach out to Gary Kish, who's a local doctor that started sports medicine, Seco Sports Medicine. I wasn't able to get a hold of him. I know he and his son and wife lived in Budapest for a year. They did like a sort of an exchange. And the other one we've talked to is Peter Samsic. I haven't had a chance to reach out to him yet, but he might know something. He is involved in the Hungarian roots.
He knows when he was in the State House, he had a reception for the Hungarian Consul General from Boston on the occasion of the anniversary of the revolution. But I didn't get because he came to one of our meetings, and I didn't get a sense that he had any particular insight into why we're a sister city.
And I remember,
But cautioned about, why we were dormant and we wanted to, yes, we all said we.
and that was more when this last party was kind of in charge. It was looking very, Trumpy, I don't know how else to say it, but very sort of dictatorship.
This
kind of-
city is the city that Viktor Orban is from, or it's adjacent to the city. So that was Peter's caution. but Adrian from the mayor's office said that they've been in touch with the embassy, US embassy, and the mayor is trying to rebuild connections, and he was just elected.
Yep.
So I'm still not totally clear about the politics. But they're reaching out to say hi, and if he's coming here, and particularly if the mayor is gonna be in Boston, it would make sense to invite him to come say hi.
Is there an action item that came from the Zoom meeting
That Adrian is going to let us know what the schedule is.
to get the mayor up here? So that's the next thing.
Yeah, we mentioned if we couldn't meet in person, maybe we could set up a Zoom meeting between the two of them, between mayor to mayor. Yeah, I remember looking at their sister city list. Did they have an American sister city list? Do you remember?
I don't.
I'm just thinking like, oh, if they do, that's probably where he's gonna visit, you know, but, I'm just trying to think.
So to be continued.
Yes, to be continued, but I did find it a positive, you know, Adrian was just positive and just trying to create a relationship, and she mentioned schools and stuff like that, you know, so.
They're big on water polo there.
Yep,
Okay.
big on water polo, football, soccer, basketball, water polo, yes. All right, if there's nothing else on Hungary, we can move on to Halifax, Nova Scotia.
So as promised at the last meeting, I started drafting a letter mayor to mayor as follow-up from the brief conversation Mayor McEachern had with Mr. Fillmore in Boston. And then went back and watched our meeting for the minutes and said, right, we were just gonna reach out to him directly. But the more I thought about it, and, you know, subject to what you all think, it seemed logical to provide some reason of why we wanna come visit, because I think we do have an agenda of hoping to establish some kind of relationship if we go to see them. But I don't know, we said at the last meeting, we didn't have to write a letter to the mayor, and our mayor didn't ask us to write a letter, so it's up to you guys.
Well, I had viewed the meeting we discussed at this committee more as a scouting mission to see if it was the kind of place we want to have a relationship with, so we could write that letter.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But we also talked about letting somebody at City Hall in Halifax know that we were coming, which was more formal.
During the Christmas Zoom call around the globe, wasn't there talk about some sailing event taking place up
Yeah.
there? And the gentleman we were on the phone with from the UK was gonna be over visiting. And I thought I remembered having a conversation about that timing would be kind of cool, that we could try to get up there and meet 2 or 3 folk
Right.
all at once.
Yeah, they did talk about that when Mayor Fillmore from Halifax had his 5 minutes, he was talking about that international regatta
Yeah.
stopping in Halifax. I don't know if it's come and gone.
Okay.
It has.
It's a
When-
June event, June 20th and 21st. My only concern, yeah, obviously it would be fun to be there. It's probably gonna make it a little trickier, just booking travels, you know what I mean? I don't know, but just thinking logistically. But yeah, what do you guys all think? I mean, I
kind of agree.
Yeah.
Mr. Sullivan here that I think this letter is beautiful, and I think 90% of it we can use. I think what I might suggest at least is that we, you know, maybe remove the sentence about drafting a formal relationship, drafting a formal agreement, and that we just leave it as some folks from our sister city wanna come up there and chat with you about it and see if there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And leave
So-
it at that. I don't
and
think
it
we need to get as formal as this letter gets, but I think everything else is beautiful.
I think
And-
that sounds fine to me.
And the letter could come from our chair,
Good instead of the mayor, either way.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to have it come from me.
It can come from both of you all, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
And so if we want them to be able to put their best foot forward, so telling them that we're coming instead of discovering when we get there that the guy we really,
Right.
the person we really need to see is out of town. So I think it doesn't have to be formal. It could just be a, hey, we're thinking of coming up there.
Yeah.
What do you suggest and when? And I think if we have a time frame, that would help them as well.
I don't know, we could do it Phantom Gourmet style.
Show
But
up.
don't tell them, so that we get an honest picture. You know,
True.
with what they have. You know.
Secret shopper. Yeah, I mean, we can even just go, when would this committee be able to, visit Halifax?
Well, I'm thinking it has to be after baseball season and before football.
Well, I don't know if if that period exists. I think those
There's 3
overlap.
days in there somewhere.
Yeah.
It's the All-Star break, so.
Yeah. For me, it might have to be after Thanksgiving. Yeah, that's why I gotta knock on wood because I'm coaching this extra team, right, that I haven't coached in the past. And we're in a state tournament right now. We're the number 1 seed, and then if we win the state tournament, we go to this like New England tournament thing, and then I don't really. Yeah.
Well, it's not gonna happen without you, so pretty much whenever you can do it is when we should do it.
And
All right.
early December isn't such a terrible time to go.
John Bohanko and I were in Belfast, Northern Ireland once at Christmas.
Yeah.
And it is a really lovely time to visit a place.
Yeah.
You know, very good time there and better than we would have had, I think, at another time of year, so.
All right. No, it's just good to communicate, what's the possible possibilities and what we're thinking. I appreciate that you don't want to go without me.
So what do we want to do? Should the letter be from Councillor Blaylock and the committee as chair of the committee and less formal? We don't necessarily need to lay out all of the
Well,
reasons,
I had a thought on that too, which is before anybody writes any letters to anybody, we should call somebody in Halifax and talk with them. And establish a personal relationship with some human being up there that we can consult on these questions. Like it might be, who knows, politically verboten to write a letter to the wrong person, which we don't wanna do.
Right.
And only somebody inside Halifax city government can guide us through that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I thought we should find somebody. We could do it on the telephone.
in the mayor's office, you think?
That would be a good start, I think.
I think that's
Is
good.
there, I mean, the thing we do know is that when Declan had a brief conversation with Andy Fillmore, they weren't rushing to write an agreement. So there may be reasons like our committee thinking, how much more do we want to take on? Or there, who knows? To your point, Bob, I think it'd be good to find that out so that he can say to his assistant, or he being that mayor, say to his assistant, now's not a good time. And just, we'll know that.
Sure. A lot of cities have a position called a chief of staff. City of Nashua has one. Chief of staff is like the ultimate insider. So if you could establish a personal relationship with that person, you would get really good advice, political advice, as well as governmental advice. So, we could find out if there's a person like that in Halifax.
Right. Or
Okay.
is there a chamber to chamber connection?
I can certainly try.
And I think that's a good idea, figuring out who to talk to. And then just have a phone call. And then plan going there in December.
I'll put it on my list to reach out to the chamber president there,
Okay,
see if that turns into
I
anything.
mean, that worked super well with Carrick Fergus. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll look to see if we can find a chief of staff or something, just
Yeah.
to see.
And see what
Yeah.
Ben comes up with. So before our next meeting, They can try to find out who in the mayor's office or who City Hall Halifax would be the right person, and Ben can.
So Ben can certainly find out somebody in the business community up there who's tied into City Hall. And, you know, one person leads to another.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else on Halifax? All right. Next we'll move on to the update from the Sister City Fund.
One more thing on
Yeah.
Halifax, I do think a conversation with Port Director Richard Hartley
Yeah.
would be appropriate. Because there is the conversation about the ferry is ongoing. And I just think we want to be aware where that's at and sensitive to that as well. So.
Great.
I'm happy to do that if no one else wants to do that.
Perfect. Yeah, you had mentioned that at our last meeting, so I think that's good.
All right, now onto the Sister City Fund. The city manager did announce to the city council and public that there is the special revenue fund for the Sister City. And that Mary Carey Foley would be the first donor. And they are also gonna put it up on the website, so when you click on like the donation things, now Sister City will be an option. So that's really, I thought that was great news. That's ultimately the goal that we wanted to get to, right, is to be able to accept donations, make it easy to, and not spend taxpayer money. But yeah, next meeting, I will be there. So if you wanna, I can put something under my name, or we can put the donation.
Well, the important thing at
agenda
this
or-
point is that since the first donation is coming from Mary Carey Foley, she actually will set the terms and conditions under which the
Yep.
special revenue fund can be expended.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we can all cooperate with her to make sure that what she submits is what we want.
But yeah.
The donation letter, I am making this donation as we've had a draft.
Yeah.
The draft, that draft wasn't part of the packet, was it? Or was it?
Yeah, it was, I believe it
Okay.
was, yeah.
Good.
Let me double check. But I'm pretty sure, I think it was the last page, you know, on the agenda. Or on the packet.
Has that draft letter become the letter? Or the form?
Basically, by
Yeah.
being in the packet.
Okay, so when you go to the website and you see Sister City and you click on Sister City to make a donation, that form will pop up. And then you fill out that form?
It-
Probably not. I think if they've had a chance to even put that option on the website, it's just click this button. If you're making a donation by credit card, it'll be automated to that extent. But to your point, people need to get that letter. So we need to figure out how.
So the way to do it, I think, is that there should be a contact person in the city government who knows what we know about this situation. And the website should indicate that people who want to make a donation should get in touch with that contact person who can explain Mary Carey's letter and how it fits in with other things. Controls how the fund will be spent.
But don't we want people to be able to make a donation online with a credit card without having to
Yeah.
call somebody?
But it doesn't matter how it's paid for. If it goes into the special revenue fund, it will be expended in accordance with the terms and condition of the special revenue fund. So they could send in money from a credit card, they could send in cash, they could send in a check. You know, that's not gonna be the controlling feature.
Because I know Christine Freeze was talking to Michael Tucker in the finance department. So he's probably the person to whom people should correspond or call. And then he can provide the letter and walk through the process.
You said Michael Tucker?
Because otherwise it would just be, choose this option and it asks how much you want to give and what your credit card number is. It doesn't explain anything in our letter. So that,
So the person who just responded in that fashion wouldn't actually know what they were giving their money to.
So I thought, my understanding was that they were gonna fill out the letter that we kind of
But I don't know that the city's payment system
Does
has
that.
that
Yeah,
capability.
yeah.
There needs to be a middleman.
Okay.
But yet, the idea is that the donor would fill out a letter and let us know if there's a particular city or cause or whatever,
Yeah.
that we outlined. I mean, if, like, I could
We
talk
could
to Mike.
prepare a form letter based upon Mary's carry letter,
Yes.
which allows individual donors to make adjustments.
Yeah.
But her letter will provide the broad outline of how the fund works.
All right, I will find out from Michael how to make that happen. Okay. Soon, so.
And I continue to think that the operative feature of the fund should be that in order for money to be spent from the fund, the committee has to vote and the city manager approves that. That's what it takes.
Yeah.
So those are the steps that Michael needs to tell me how we accomplish those.
Yeah, because I do want it to be clear as day,
Yes.
so I can, if I run into somebody real quick, be like, this is how you do it, I was more under the impression that this was already the form and it was gonna link to it or something.
It's the letter, but I just don't know how our system lets you get to that letter. So I'll figure that out, find out from Mike.
Sure.
And Christine may already know all of that because she met with him last. So ask her first.
All right, next we have, letter to Mayor Sacchetti from Sant'Angelo, regarding the installation of the art lights. Thank you again, Stiffy, for drafting this. But yeah, I'd welcome any comments, edits. What do you got, Mary Carey? What do you think?
Look at
I
me
think
and
this is the best letter written ever that
giggled. You make me giggle.
Mayor Sacchetti.
Remember, they're watching.
I know.
I've noticed since he was a little kid, every once in a while I sit here and say, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
But no, I know we talked about the ribbon cutting or something possibly in fall of 2027.
That the timing?
Yeah.
I look right now, I mean,
The landscaping work is due to be completed by June of 2027. So it could be earlier than fall. There's a Von Mall public meeting for the DPW to present the design on the 22nd. The Public Art Review Committee has had some conversation about that. As it says, the purpose of this letter is to say, oh, and by the way, Mayor Sacchetti, who's been here twice,
Yeah.
thank you for your gift. We are in fact going to put it in Von Mall.
That's great.
So,
this is good.
but we should, I don't remember.
The second paragraph.
Yep,
Last sentence.
Yep.
Was that a note to one's self writing this?
That's the fabricator to advise us.
no,
It would
it's-
also be helpful to know the time frame.
we need to know how long it takes for them to make the piece.
I thought they made the piece. Don't we have the piece here?
Oh.
I think you have it in your closet?
Right. No, they have to fabricate it. There's a man in Naples
build
who
it.
makes these things. So he needs to make it and tell us how long that's gonna take and how we get it here.
So we have a verbal donation. We don't actually have the item in our possession.
At this moment.
Okay.
When the idea was presented half ago now, it was a complete surprise, so we needed to figure out where we were gonna put it. And the idea of Von Mall came up, so that's what the Public Art Review Committee showed the mayor and the art director when they were here in March, April. And they said, great. So they kind of know that we're doing this, but it just made sense to actually say yes. And this is the schedule that DPW has for Von Mall. How long does it take for you guys to make this art like author luminaries?
Is it a banner type that goes across the
There are
street?
multiple ones. Imagine a number of, I don't know that it's neon, it's some kind of lighted tube about the width of one of these table sections. There are 5 of them, and there are each of them is a line from a poem.
Okay.
That then need to be placed over the street with enough support. The DPW is planning poles at the right intervals with electrical connections. And the other point that Dave DeFosis made is tell us what voltage these are, because European voltage isn't the same as ours.
Are these intended to be up year round?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, every art installation has a life, I guess, but yeah, the idea is that it'd be put up in, like, there's one up in New York that went up in 1999. It's still up.
Okay.
Counselor Cook was going to visit the one in Brooklyn. I don't know if she did. Originally, the concept was a holiday decoration in Sant'Arcangelo, but then it's lasted. And they, for whatever reason, decided that that was such a signature part of Sant'Arcangelo that it made sense to give us one. And then we had the whole conversation about a reciprocal gift if we go there, when we go there.
And hopefully this donation or the special revenue fund could possibly lead to assistance with that, future gift, so that it's not just
Yeah, I mean,
it opens more possibilities. Right?
they're, for us to give them a gift, because the light thing is being given to us. And DPW has the installation built into the Von Mall reconstruction.
As a line item, not with any specificity. Right. There'll need to be some type of substructure that holds each individual light up.
Yeah, and
right?
The impression I've gotten is that what we'll get are those segments ready to go up over the street and be plugged in.
But that was part of the meeting they had with Park, and they had the members from DPW here. Either but just talking about the engineering of it, what would you the loads and everything, that kind of stuff. And that was when the Mayor Sacchetti and the CIO, the artists, were both present for that meeting. So yeah.
So we can submit this to.
Yeah, so I'd entertain a motion to send to Mayor McCachran to be sent to Mayor Sacchetti.
So
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right. Next we have new business. I did receive a letter from, just pull it up here. Just an email. It was from Adam, who we met when Portsmouth, England was here. He just mentioned, like, if we have any, ideas for business or, let me find it real quick.
And they were here for the 400th?
He was,
Wasn't the gentleman that met upstairs with his fiance or wife with him, or is that a different person?
no, I believe he was here at the reception that we actually had. But maybe it was when Sergeant Condrelo might have been here. But yeah. But he's more asking about Portsmouth, UK on this one. He just wrote an email to me and Christine. It's like, hope you're doing great. We met at the Sergeant Condrelo reception. We'll be taking a delegation to companies into Farnborough International Air Show at the UK. Connections for aerospace, space, and defense manufacturers across New Hampshire. As part of the BEA's Commissioner Nancy Lang is going to be looking for other opportunities to strengthen economic ties for the state and its communities. They're spending time with economic development and political leadership in Hampshire. I wanted to reach out to the leadership team in Portsmouth, United Kingdom.
So this is a local guy who is going there.
Yes, he's from the Office of International Commerce, from the Department, from the state, Department of Business and Economic Affairs. He's the International Trade Resource Manager.
For New Hampshire.
Yes. And when we were talking, we talked everything from Nelson, New Zealand to Portsmouth to Santa Cruz, and, it was like, if there's ever an import-export company or something, or if we start selling, hops that are grown in New Zealand, to brew beer here, anything like that. But he was, just trying to help connections, but I just thought I'd bring it up to the committee, especially Ben, being the leader of the business community. And yeah, just mention it just if anyone had any thoughts or ideas, and we can brainstorm. And if anyone has one next meeting, I can happy to send them to Adam.
When is the air show?
It might have already happened, but
Farnborough is a big deal. It's like the big international.
it was more that he was
military,
reaching out. Yeah. He doesn't
just so
mention,
they have connections and want to let us know.
he doesn't mention when it was, but when it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to learn more about our friendship city, I guess, between Portsmouth and what they can do to help. Has ideas on that?
To that end, you remind me that we finally got a link that I think I shared with you, but maybe I didn't. A video of that song that
You did send that.
high school, which I thought we looked really good
Oh.
in that, sounded terrific. So
It's a very
it's
well done video, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I was impressed. with
there
how-
are like 50 participants that they edited together. So yeah, so part of the Song to the Sea, which was neat.
Yeah, no, and I have to commend you for doing that extra, making sure that happened. 'Cause that was one of the cooler things to be part of.
Yeah.
I know we talked about like the Christmas Zoom that Portsmouth England did, and we should maybe try to, organize our own or something. But that kind of was like, oh, we actually did something.
I mean, honestly, as we keep saying, given our bandwidth, focusing on the relationships that we have and making of them what we can is a really good thing. So Sant'Arcangelo and Nishinan and now Portsmouth and potentially Solmock.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we could let Adam know what we've done. The mayor did send a video for their 100th anniversary, our mayor.
Yeah.
And we did the choral thing. Staying in touch.
Is that choral thing up on the website, city website anyway?
It isn't yet, but that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I have a good idea. It should be shared.
Yeah, just a little snippet.
Yeah,
This is,
yeah, no, good idea.
And then we can put it in the newsletter so people know.
It makes nice social media content too.
Yeah,
Wasn't sure if someone shared it with Monty. I didn't want to overstep.
I will make sure to do that.
Does anyone else have any other new business? Yes.
While the committee was discussing other things, I had a chance to read the draft letter, proposed draft letter to the mayor of Halifax. And if this would be an appropriate time, I would suggest 2 facts that could be incorporated into the letter, which would help tie this request directly to Portsmouth and in fact, directly to this committee. And is it appropriate?
Yeah.
So the 2 facts are, number 1, under the section which is called Maritime/Navy. Halifax, Nova Scotia is the East Coast home base for the Royal Canadian Navy. And that ties to this committee because during our committee member, Mary Carey Foley's, during her mother's term as mayor, the Canadian diesel electric submarine, the Onondaga, which is undoubtedly based in Halifax, spent several days in Portsmouth and tied up off of Surrey Street. And the Canadian sailors and the captain of the submarine came into the submarine, came into the city, and in fact, one of the city's attorneys at the time, had dinner with the captain of the submarine.
Anybody we know?
Yes, probably. And and I thought that, incorporating that into the maritime
Absolutely.
section, that the Onondaga is the name of a Native American tribe, and they named their submarine after that. So that probably not Native American, I'm sorry, Native Canadian.
Right.
First Nation.
And so there's one. And the second one is this, Mayor McCachran, who will sign this letter, his family actually comes from Nova Scotia. And in fact, he has a brother currently owns a home in Nova Scotia. So there are just ways in which you could tie this city, Mayor McCachran, this letter, to connect Portsmouth and
Yeah.
Halifax and Nova Scotia.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the more specific, the better.
Yeah. I did try to reach out to him on if there was any further communication or updates on Halifax. He didn't get back to me yet, but I'm sure he's trying to enjoy his summer right now.
The break.
But no, Bob, that's awesome because that brings actual connections. You know what I mean? And now it personalizes this a little more instead of just what facts we have in common and
Yes.
stuff. But anything else?
One other piece of new business, it came up at a Japan America Society of New Hampshire board meeting. There's discussion about making our cherry trees out here more accessible. I have had a couple of conversations with Max Weotter, who is our arborist foreman for the city and the representative on the City Trees and Greenery Committee. And he thought it would be nice to literally have a path that is physically more accessible. Because this, you come off the sidewalk, you're in the grass, and then you have a fairly steep incline. He also talked about realigning the crosswalk that comes from the parking lot at the playground so that it would line up better. And a little bit of signage, because there is one of the blue historical markers out in the middle of the causeway that explains explains the cherry trees, ancestor cities, but it's at a distance from where the trees actually are. So the conversation with the Japan Society board started with the idea of putting in a citizen request capital improvement plan idea to do that. And Max is very much in support of that concept. And then from that, the conversation led to making more of a big deal, making any kind of deal out of our cherry trees when they bloom. The challenge to that is that every now and then they don't bloom. If it gets warm in February and then it gets cold again, the fruiting trees don't blossom. So there's that challenge. Then there's never, of course, a certain date as to when the trees will blossom. It's sometime between mid-April and early May. So it's hard to schedule a particular event. At the same time, when they bloom, they do eventually bloom. I've been doing, for the Japan Society, I've been doing a press release about their blooming and telling the story. Half of the trees, the old trees right along the bank, were funded by Nishinan in 1985 when they created the Sister City Agreement. And then the ones further up the bank are descended from the trees in Washington. And they were given to us by the Foreign Ministry of Japan because they were donating trees around the country in 2013 on the 100th anniversary of the original gift to Washington. And we, New Hampshire, raised our hands and said, well, the ones in Washington are there because of the Portsmouth Peace Treaty, according to the mayor of Tokyo, who arranged the gift. We should have some of those trees here. So they said, yeah, you're right, here. So we got a lot of trees and planted the ones in the back row down here on the pond. We planted one or more at each of the public schools. And so that's why they're there, but that leads back to the Cherry Blossom Festival idea. And given the limited number of people who could do anything with the Japan Society Board, the suggestion, Councillor Cook made the suggestion that we might do what the Jazz Festival does, which is rather than trying to expand the Jazz Festival beyond what that committee is able to do, they've invited other jazz venues to do programming at the time of the Jazz Festival. So the idea is to invite Wentworth by the Sea, Nishinan Restaurant that apparently does a cherry blossom special menu when the trees bloom, and that we invite any of the entities, organizations that any of you guys represent to just participate in this essentially virtual cherry blossom festival. So that's the new business idea that I float to all of you, and we can continue the conversation. And first of all, I'm really interested as to whether any of you think that's a good idea and what that might actually look like. Because we could do anything that anybody wants to do.
I was unaware that they were at the elementary schools. I don't spend a lot of time at the elementary school, so I wouldn't know. Does that get incorporated into the instruction at the elementary schools? Is that ever taught to the students there?
Yes, it's like many other things. It really depends on the teacher.
Yeah.
But New Franklin in particular, when former president of the chamber, his wife was a teacher at Doug. His wife was a teacher at New Franklin, and she thought the cherry trees were wonderful. So she would tell her students. At the high school, where the trees are in the lawn between the building and the football field, they all have plaques. They all have granite plaques to explain that that's what they are, except for the ones out here because they have the other sign. But the high school has incorporated the history of the Portsmouth Peace Treaty in their curriculum. And because there's such an active exchange program with Nishinan, the high school kids are more aware. The elementary schools, not as much, and that could be something that was part of your tree is blooming. Did you even notice that you have one? And why is it there? And all of that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
The high school also has the Nichinan Little Theater, just another just to make the kids aware. There's all these little display cases.
Oh, yeah,
And yeah.
But I did explain to the board that on the anniversary when we got all these trees from the Foreign Ministry, we tried to put together a cherry blossom festival. Wentworth by the Sea had a cherry blossom package that, come for the weekend. We have some amenity in the room. We have special menu items. We had the author of a book about the history of the cherry trees, whose name is escaping me at the moment. This was 2013, 100th anniversary. She came, she did a reading at Wentworth. We had a little cocktail party reception on the terrace at Wentworth, and all of that attracted 20 people. So it's not a big thing, but like everything else, if you don't start somewhere and keep doing it consistently, it's never gonna take off. So the theory now is to figure out who might be the logical partners to do their own thing. Could be a music dimension, could be anything. And I'm actually thinking the Piscataqua Garden Club, somebody does an Ikebana arrangement display at the library, they could do it then. The Japan Society of New Hampshire doesn't do anything much more than the study of the Portsmouth Peace Treaty, because we just don't have the people to do it. We don't do language lessons, we don't do flower arranging. They tried that before I was ever involved 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So that doesn't mean that there aren't people who do that, who could decide that as part of this cherry blossom celebration, they would do a display of Japanese flower arranging or music or art or whatever. It's just figuring out who those entities are. So I welcome all ideas, suggestions now and until next April.
No, I think it's a good idea. Think about. Does anyone have any? comments?
I think starting small with, maybe just some more awareness of the story and through social media and sometimes if you provide ideas to teachers like how you can incorporate this into your classroom, so like the art teacher could do something with it,
Yeah.
whatever have you, it doesn't have to be like the history of whatever,
Yeah.
just start that from an early age. But I like the idea of starting small with a couple things and seeing the response.
Great. Thanks. I did not know that Nishinon Restaurant did a cherry blossom menu.
I do not know her.
Kate told me. Yeah, so that's, thank you.
Does anyone have any other business?
Well, we have no public.
Here. All right, well, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, thank you, Portsmouth.